Now, Ukraine's government has warned pro-Russian militias occupying key buildings in the east of the country. They face more of what Kiev calls anti-terror measures. Alexander Tereshnikov's comments follow the failure of a ceasefire deal signed last week by Russia, Ukraine, the United States and the European Union. But Russia's foreign minister has responded by warning it will retaliate if its interests are attacked. Our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson, has this.
OK, Easter's over, now get out of our buildings. So Kiev told these men in Donetsk today. But out east, these pro-Russian balaclava lads are having none of it. Their sound systems blaring, their barricades surround the government building they occupy, and they're telling Ukraine's acting president, come and get us if you're hard enough.
Firstly, this is not the first ultimatum. Secondly, we don't consider any of his words to mean action. He doesn't do anything. He's just a false governor, and his whole government is illegitimate.
Illegitimate government or not, depending on where you stand, Kiev insists its military operation against these identity-shy pro-Russians will now start up again. In Kiev, Washington and Moscow, another day of mutual handbagging. But the Russians are keeping up their military exercises close to their border with Ukraine. And their foreign minister today, very obviously, stating the very obvious for those listening in Ukraine, Russia and the US.
If we are attacked, we would certainly respond. If our interests, legitimate interests, the interests of Russians have been attacked directly, like they were in South Ossetia, for example, I don't see any other way but to respond in full accordance with international law.
But what are those Russian interests? These Ukrainian soldiers outside Donetsk today, their bosses in Kiev and their US allies might just possibly interpret such interests differently from Moscow. And today Moscow reiterated that it wants Ukrainian soldiers out of southeastern Ukraine. So Moscow keeps her troops on exercise, makes sure TV cameras are there. It's all a bit extreme Top Gear, designed to remind and menace. And then from nowhere comes an unlikely ally for Moscow today, warning that Russia isn't the problem or the real threat at all. The issue is radical Islam.
In the face of this threat, we seem curiously reluctant to acknowledge it and powerless to counter it effectively. On this issue, whatever our other differences, we should be prepared to reach out and cooperate with the East, and in particular Russia and China.
He's actually wearing a British vest. It's got the surname of its previous owner on it, Preston, from the United Kingdom. I'm going to ask him how he got it.
Simon Ostrovsky's last report from Ukraine. Today it was reported that the American journalist had been kidnapped by the self-appointed mayor of Sloviansk. This afternoon at the town's barricaded police HQ, the spokeswoman for the so-called mayor accused Mr. Ostrovsky of spying.
He is alive and healthy. No physical harm has come to him. We need to be careful because this is not the first time we've dealt with spies.
Just yesterday, across the town of Sloviansk, and a huge turnout for this. Funerals of 3 men killed on Easter Sunday. Pro-Russians here blame Kiev, and yes, Kiev blames Moscow. Whoever, whatever, 3 men lie dead. Easter Sunday has now passed, and now Kiev, with America's backing, promises to resume operations against the armed men in the east.
Alex Thompson reporting.